we're back on Liquid Lunch, and we hope you've been enjoying our show so far. And now we have Brenda Borenstein of Organized Zone with us to talk to us about the issue of hoarding and what can be done about it. Welcome, Brenda.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks. Great to have you. So, what is this whole thing about hoarding? It's been in the media a lot. It's been even on television shows, like I believe Private Practice did an issue about it. I saw that, and it's also been in the news a lot. What is the whole thing about hoarding, and what brings it on?
Well, it's coming to surface now, like you see through all the media and everything, but it's how people live, and they say it's 4% of the population are hoarders, which is enormous. And this is what I've been doing since 2001, specializing in hoarding. And it's just unbelievable because it's coming to the light, and I try to explain to people what I do, but they have no idea. But now with all the media, they say, oh, I've seen that on TV. Do people really live like that? And it's worse. It's worse than you see, because what you see in a 30-minute show is not reality. Because when I go in with my team, we have a much bigger dynamic than what you see on TV.
So why don't you walk us through what happens? You are a professional organizer specializing in hoarding. What happens? What happens when you get that call and they actually make the call even to come to you, right? Because they have to recognize there's a problem in order to do that. And then how do you work it through? Like, maybe you can give us a few examples of that.
So when people call me, it's more of a desperate situation. So they've had someone who's come into their apartment or their condo from management, and the secret is out now. And so either the health department is going to come in, or it's a fire hazard, or there's something, there has to be a reason, because they're going to be evicted or something's threatening them. A lot of the hoarders are isolated, and so they don't have many friends, or nobody's been to their apartment or their home, and it's a very, very scary thing. So I will get the frantic call that someone has to come in to help them, and they're nervous, and I'll go in and I take a mask with me. And most recently I had one that I walked in and I thought there were animals living there.
Oh my God.
And the smell is the first giveaway, and so if you have neighbors, it's not very pleasant.
What kind of animals?
There were no animals.
Dogs, cats?
There were no animals.
There were no animals.
That's right.
Just how bad it was.
Yeah, it's just I thought
So
from
like
the smell.
garbage food and stuff? They don't take out the food? Or
Sometimes they can't get to a washroom.
Oh.
Sometimes
So you're talking the smell of urine and human feces?
Absolutely. Or sometimes I walked into a place and the woman wasn't wearing a mask. And I walked in, and about 3 minutes later my chest started to burn. And I walked out to the balcony so I could breathe. And I said, what is that smell? And she says, I don't smell anything. And I had to take a few deep breaths because I couldn't breathe, and then I put on my mask. And so whether it was the dust or a spray, or you never know what it is, but it's just an accumulation, years gone by, of an addiction, which is hoarding. So whether they're accumulating it from either shopaholics or anything that's not nailed down, they'll take home that's free. Papers they're afraid to get rid of anytime they've moved. You know, when you move, sometimes you have a few boxes in the basement that you haven't gone through, and it can stay there for a few years, 5 years even. But if you can imagine a whole house like that, not having a bed to sleep on, a couch to sit on, a table to eat on.
So
Wow.
they can't get to the bathroom because there's too much clutter?
It's happened before.
Right.
That they can't. That they have to go to outside restrooms.
Wow.
It is not a place that can be lived in. And so if you have neighbors, if you're in a condo or an apartment, then of course they would bring in, the city to...
Yeah, because it's a disease pool, right?
Right.
It's very dangerous.
Goes through the vents, and it's very dangerous.
So, what you're doing is pretty remarkable. I don't think that a lot of people could even take it on, even to muster up the nerve to go in and face that smell. How then do you click with the person, get them to trust you enough?
That's the key.
To get the place cleaned up.
So the key is trust, because they don't trust. And hoarding happens from a very young age. There's something traumatic that happened, a loss.
So there's a psychological reason behind it.
Absolutely. So you have to be sensitive to it. And I go in there without judgment, because you can't say how do people live like that, because there's a reason for everything. And so I go in there and I have a conversation, and we talk about, candidly, how can I help? What are the goals? To live here? To move from here? And then we start with the consultation, and it's very difficult to move around oftentimes, and they're embarrassed or ashamed, or they're not, or they feel dead about it. And so, and then it's not just me alone who goes in. I am a team. I am a team of a handful of organizers. I have junk removal. I've got shredders. I've got toxic waste disposal. I've got a laundry service. I have a painting service, because there's so much involved when you're dealing with a hoarder, that all of those things have to be in place for you to move on, because there's going to be an enormous amount of an exodus of garbage, of recycling, of toxic waste. People throw away money like it's garbage. Buy things the same way.
Would you need also in some cases a psychologist or somebody to accompany you?
Well, they don't work with us at the site. I work with the client one-on-one, and I don't claim to be a therapist. However, I've dealt with over 2,000 clients since I started, so I do have an understanding for it. But we do hope that, and we refer them to therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. A lot of them get medicated.
So can you walk us through maybe a few of your best case scenarios type of things? Like,
I'll tell you the most fresh.
How you solved it,
It's like a crime, right?
Yeah, well, what you did and how it came to be, how you helped this person become less of a hoarder, or just, the whole case scenario thing, the before and after type of thing.
So I'll tell you the one that's freshest in my mind from last week. And she was a shopaholic. And it's
What's a shopaholic?
A shopaholic, not you. So
I have been accused.
I was going to say, you're asking what's a...
Okay, so I'm a shopaholic in terms of hoarding is something different.
Okay, so explain that.
So the client who we were dealing with last week, and most hoarders are very lovely people, highly intelligent. That's across the board. So I actually worked on her place 5 years ago. And she worked with us, and it was very difficult for her to work with us. And I remember she had change all over the floor, and she had clothes everywhere. And when I say everywhere, if I could show you a visual next time, I will. And because you couldn't see a couch or a table or a counter or a washroom or a bed or the rooms.
All covered in clothing.
Right, mountains and mountains and mountains of bags you see tags everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not anywhere near that. Thank you.
So what would happen would be that we would walk in. So that we were there 5 years ago, and she was in a jam, and she had to stop at, let's say, day 5 because she couldn't take it emotionally anymore. She didn't seek the recommended help that we suggested. So 5 years later, a situation where they knocked on her door to check the windows. It's a building. And so the unit manager got involved and said, you better get this fixed or you could be evicted from your place. It's detrimental to the neighbors. So we came in, and I asked my client not to be there. I made sure this time that she was seeking some type of treatment with the doctor. She said she was. And because we can't work with her because it would be way too painful for her to make a decision on the items. There might have been 300,000 items throughout the unit.
So when you say you asked your client not to be there, she was the client? 'Cause
Yes.
I was thinking building managers could...
Forced her to call, right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so you wanted her not there so that you could, because otherwise you'd be there for 3 years.
Well, it's just...
How about this one?
Yeah, and it's not even about lifting up the shirt because, like, there's 300,000 items, and truly through papers or, a beaded necklace, or there's so much stuff. So it's a matter of eliminating, so we have a pathway first, which is always the first step, and find whatever space we can. And there's no walking space. I don't, we have no idea how someone could live there. There's not an inch of space anywhere. So you look for obvious garbage. You look for newspapers or old magazines, and you hope that you have that in place, that those things could go. Very soiled clothes. You hope that you can send those out to be laundered so that you can make a pathway. She happened to have a balcony. We used the balcony, and that was our saving grace.
Wow.
Yeah, we had 2 garbage people working full-time, taking out the garbage and the Goodwill constantly for 8 days.
Wow.
8 days
8
it took you to
days.
clean this place?
Yeah,
Wow.
we had to throw out the couch. The couch was it was very soiled once we found it. It was a huge exodus of items. But she ended up having, she cried, hyperventilating at the end, saying, "I cannot believe this is my space. It's
Was that,
unbelievable."
Like, I cried.
Like
as
she
a
was.
happy crying,
It was
or?
a happy cry. It was
Like
a happy
therapeutic?
cry. A therapeutic, such an awe, and many times, that keeps us going because you work so hard in a place for the results, always for the client, to make them so happy and to make them have a space that they can live in and function in, that they could bring someone up, that they have a space to eat, that they can find their clothes in the morning. Very simple things that people take for granted, hoarders have to deal with.
So how does it get to that point? Like, how does it get to a point like where a person is so taken with this hoarding issue that they can actually live like that? Obviously, once you do your bit and you help them, and then they can see that they don't have to live like that anymore. So that's the solution. But how does it actually get to that point to begin with? Where does the issue come from, or is there many things that bring on hoarding?
There's many things that bring it on, and it starts when they're young. There's something traumatic that happened. I had a client whose parents died in a car accident when she was 9 years old. She didn't grow up with a mother. So from that loss, she started the hoarding. And so that was a lifelong
And what
thing.
did the hoarding mean to her? The collection of goods was something that she could hold on to?
Security.
Yes, security.
Security. And
Stability, I guess?
somewhat, because when I speak to them and I say, you have all of this quantity around you, where is the quality? Is it your daughter? Is it your mother? Is it your husband? Enjoy the quality of your life, not the quantity. And and that's really how we start off, with the trust and thinking what's really important to you.
And have you been in a situation where people are living like this as a family? Like, I mean, I don't know how you could live like that as a family, how little children could function in an environment like that, but have you come across that?
Many times. The toys, the constant buying. It's a dysfunctional family, a family that needs help. So they go out and they buy things, or they attain things, or even, doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, hoarding has no discrimination. So you can attain things either way. And it's just unbelievable that people can live like that, but they do.
Is it usually like one person though who's like
Behind it all?
really has the problem, or you see families where they're all like have this hoarder mentality?
So you can have a very cluttered home and need Organized Zone to come in and to declutter, and it's a real big shake-up, and we have 2 or 3 garbage bins, enormous, at the end of the job, completely filled. But that's not hoarding.
Okay.
Because it's still, they have hoarding mentality, but not to the extreme of a hoarding like some of the shows that you've seen. Those people are more isolated.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the ones who are the worst are usually living alone. Do they own versus rent?
No.
Does it make any difference?
It
or
does,
it could
it's
be
either
could be
or.
either?
Yeah.
Well, are they in massive debt though? It sounds like everything they have, they just keep spending and hoarding.
No, because they don't always buy. So,
they
they can take, CIBC could have calendars for the new year. They'll take all of them. The flyers that they see at Shoppers, they could take that. Anything that's free, anytime they get a coffee, they're going to keep the cup.
Okay, so they just can't let go of anything or throw anything
Anything.
out. There's an attachment or some kind of value associated with the item that you shouldn't throw it away.
Perceived value. I
Perceived
guess.
value.
I mean,
Perceived, or they
really
have
it's a bunch of garbage, right? But-
or there's purpose to it. The reason that they have kept all these bags is because of this. The reason they've kept the
Okay.
lid
In
is
their mind,
because
it
this.
has some kind of value to them.
But do
Right.
they actually use it or reuse it? Or
Never.
Never.
But they have the
this-
intention.
They have the intention, but they actually don't go through with it.
Right. So oftentimes I'll say, well, tell me the purpose and your intention, and my team is going to step on your coattails and make it happen for you. So if you want these bags because the city doesn't, give them out anymore, and you want them for groceries, I'm going to make sure that you have a place for them and a home for them, and you can do that. We're not going to have 80,000. We're going to have 20.
So let's talk results, okay? So
Yeah.
let's say you've cleaned a hoarder's place up and now it's livable.
Right.
Does it last that long? Does it last? Have you ever stopped someone from being a hoarder?
Yeah, well, so a particular lady that I was just talking to before, so she called me 5 years ago, And without treatment, it's very difficult because it's psychological.
Right. But with treatment, you have a better chance.
You have absolutely a better chance. And if your family has a very full home and it's still functional, you can still walk around. There's maybe a small area you can eat on. Definitely having a home and a place and getting organized is doable. And any of those shows that you see, which I get so angry when I see them, because for the before and after in the 30-minute show, they'll show one room that's done. So either for television, they'll either put it in the garage, or I just don't think it's authentic. And they don't get the results, because in order to help a hoarder or someone who's very disorganized, your whole space has to be done. You can't leave the basement or the garage. You have to have a home and a place and a purpose for everything. And then it makes sense.
So they're just giving you a taste
They're giving you a
what the
taste.
hoarder's life is about.
Yeah,
And
let
you-
them come to work with me
Right.
for a week and see.
And so once you've done your thing, though, have you actually seen somebody who went from a hoarder to being organized and functional?
100%. And I'll see them years later, and
And it's still that way.
it's still that way. And they embrace me, tell me I've saved their life. It's
And
really
you probably have.
Yeah, it's a tremendous
So can
accomplishment for
I
them.
ask you one other thing, which
Yeah.
is I'm really curious. You are a professional organizer by profession,
Yes.
right? By trade, and you obviously chose this path.
Yes.
There are, there's many organizers out there that focus on different things. Why did you choose to focus on hoarding? What was it about hoarding that made you go into it? Did you have an experience with it yourself, or someone in your family? Like what?
I think I fell into it. Somehow I attract it. People find me from all over. I was not born organized. I had clothes on my floor growing up. I had the door that was closed that my mother said, keep your door closed. I don't want the cleaning lady seeing your room. I was messy, absolutely. I had a shift in my life that I became organized and, figured out my stuff. And I can understand and relate without judgment to my clients, which
Okay,
helps.
so there's your answer right there.
Yeah.
So you are a natural affinity to this.
Yes.
Okay, but you probably weren't a hoarder per se.
No, I wasn't a hoarder, but I can understand having more than you need, for sure, and having excess.
And in your experience, just before we close out, have you seen the issue of hoarding destroy people or destroy their relationships?
Destroys their relationships, they lose their homes. It is such a horrible thing, to have no dignity, to actually wake up in the morning and, like I say, all I want to give them is a place where they can have a cup of coffee in the morning and find their socks and underwear and start
Wow.
their day. The very simple things of life.
Well, I think what you're doing is pretty amazing. Like I said before, I don't know that anyone, like a lot of people, could do what you do and tolerate it. We need to know how to find you.
Well,
So-
people can call me at 416-665-2165, or my website, which is www.organizedwithadzone.com, or email me at info@organizedzone.com.
Okay, and also I want to bring out one other point, which is, can somebody else call you on behalf of a hoarder, like a family member? You mentioned that the building might be calling, or the health inspection. You hope it doesn't come to that. Can somebody else do it, or do you think it has to be the hoarder themselves?
I have many loving family members and friends call me on behalf of someone who's in trouble, who's a hoarder. But and I help them. But of course, it's always best to come from them, because they have to want it, they have to accept it, they have to have that initial trust with me to know that I'm there to help them, and they don't have to be fearful of that.
Okay. And is this all you do, though? Is this primarily what you do, or you do other organized
So
services?
we help people in transition and help them get rid of their excess stuff. So people who are moving, which is the other part of our business, so we pack them up, we stage their home, we move them and unpack them in one day, or if they're renovating, we again pack them. It's always a big job. Everybody hates to do it. If people just have a whole cluttered home, they're not hoarders, we revamp the space for families, and it really makes a huge difference in their lives.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you have anything on that?
No, that sounds like great work. Organizedzone.com.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty
Organized Zone
amazing
Inc., right?
Yes.
to learn about that.
Well, thank you so much for being here today
My
and
pleasure.
for sharing this. I think it's a very important issue. It's affecting a lot of the population, as you pointed out. And I look forward to seeing some more of your work. That would be great. And thanks for being with us today. I think we're just going to close out now the show. I also want to thank David for sitting in as
My
co-host
pleasure.
and for
Anytime.
doing my
Yeah, it was a
interview
good
with
time.
me when I had the Magnetic Marketing Moment. I want to thank all of you for watching us today and being here. And of course, Liquid Lunch is on that channel every day from 12 to 2 p.m., usually with Hugh Riley, who is the host and creator of Liquid Lunch. He's just on vacation. He'll be back shortly, and he'll be joining you daily. And I also want to remind you all that I will be back on September 20th for the next Magnetic Marketing Moment, where I will also be serving as co-host. I hope you have an amazing day and an amazing week. Thanks for watching us today.